Hello, everybody. Tate Davis here with my first installment of the album review series. I'm going to start reviewing albums in my vinyl collection for you guys to care or not care about. I don't know, just something I tried doing. Today's first album review is going to be of the Steely Dan album from 1977, Aja. That's A-J-A. It's only got 7 tunes on it. It's got, of course, Donald Fagen and Walter Becker and a whole host of well-known, well-renowned session musicians from Los Angeles in the California area. This is the front cover. I got this at a record store in McHenry, Illinois called Vinyl Frontier for $5, and it's in very good condition. And then right here on the inner gate sleeve right here is a wonderfully written little blurb here, little post here from the president of ABC Records, whose name is Steve Diner. Steve Diner, maybe? Anyway, ABC Records was the record label that Steely Dan was signed to at the time. They would... In 1979, they would get bought up by MCA Records, and those artists who were signed to ABC Records would get transferred over to MCA's roster. Tom Petty and the Heart. Tom Petty had a whole problem with that, but we're not talking about Tom Petty in this video. So here's that. Here's a picture of Donald right up here, and then Walter right up here. I don't know if you can see that. And then we have the album right here, side 1, side 2. So it was, according to the liner notes here, I just let you know I did not prepare for this, regarding research and historical background. I'm just totally flying by the seat of my pants here. So it was recorded at the Village Recorders in West LA. Producers Workshop in Hollywood, Warner Brothers North Hollywood Recording Studios, ABC Recording Studios in Hollywood, and then A&R Studios in New York City. Basically, a lot of places in California and New York, and A&R Studios in New York. Roger Nichols, Elliot Shiner, Bill Schnee, and Al Schmidt engineered it. A whole host of assistant engineers. Roger Nichols is the executive engineer. Mastered by Bernie Grundman at A&M Studios in Hollywood, and then Gary Katz produced it, who was Steely Dan's longtime producer. So, what do we got in terms of music here? Well, actually, why don't I pull out the sleeve here so you can see this is lyrics and such. So, what do we got here? So on side 1, track 1 is Black Cow. Black Cow. Great tune. I like Black Cow a lot. It's kind of a straight, Steely, quintessential Steely Dan song. I mean, there's not really much to say. It's a good pop song. Get your big black cow. Got a little bit of a swing to it. So I'll go ahead and give you the personnel. Song. So on Black Cow, on the track Black Cow, we have Donald Fagen on synthesizers and vocals, Larry Carlton on guitar, Joe Sample on clavinet, Victor Feldman on electric piano, Chuck Rainey on bass, Paul Humphrey on drums, Tom Scott on tenor sax, and then Clyde King, Vanetta Field, Shirley Matthews, and Rebecca Lewis on backing vocals. Yeah, Black Cow, great song. Next, we got the title track, side 1, track 2, the title track, Aja. This is a masterpiece. It really is. Steve Gadd, of course, playing drums on this one. Probably the only drum solo you'll ever hear in a Steely Dan song. Just absolutely very tasteful fills that Steve Gadd plays. And on top of that, his playing during the verses is just really lyrical, and the intro, Aja's so good. Wonderful tenor saxophone solo by Mr. Wayne Shorter here. Wayne Shorter, obviously. we all know who Wayne Shorter is. So obviously, okay, what else have we got here? So obviously, Donald Fagen on keyboards and vocals, Joe Sample on electric piano, Michael Omartian on piano, Victor Feldman on percussion, Donald Fagen also plays the police whistle, Wayne Shorter on tenor sax, Timothy B. Schmidt of Eagles, not yet of Eagles, he was in Poco at this point, but he would join the Eagles, replacing Randy Meisner on bass. And Donald Fagen doing backup vocals here. Larry Carlton, Walter Becker, and Denny Diaz doing all playing guitar on this, and then Chuck Rainey on bass, and then Steve Gadd on drums. So, yeah, Aja. I remember reading. It was an article. I think it might have been Wikipedia. Take it for what it's worth. That the band member, that all the people who played on the session just kept, I think Donald Fagen and Walter Becker were really had a perfectionist attitude, and they were just trying to get it, trying to get the song right, and it took them a while to nail the track, for the musicians to nail the track. But at least Steve Gadd was saying something about it in an interview, according to an article I read on Wikipedia. Again, take it for what it's worth. But no, Aja, great song, wonderful host of, great host of musician, great host of musicians out there. Probably one of the more famous tracks from this album, we have track 3 on side 1 is Deacon Blues. What else can you say? 7 minutes of pure greatness. Call me Deacon Blues. A great tenor sax solo by Pete Christileb. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Donald Fagen on synthesizers and vocals, Victor Feldman on electric piano, Larry Carlton and Lee Ritenour on guitars, Walter Becker on bass, Bernard Purdy on drums. You'll hear about him in a few minutes. And then Clyde King, Shirley Matthews, and Ned Fields on backing vocals. A perfect example of how wonderful a feel that Bernard Purdy did, playing with the whole host of people that he played with. Bernard Purdy just had an amazing feel. Made the song feel great. Deacon Blues is no exception. So, I like the reference of University of Alabama's football team, the Crimson Tide. They call Alabama the Crimson Tide, called the Deacon Blues. That's pretty cool. Moving on to side 2 here, we have probably the most famous song from this, the most popular song from this album, and the one that was the biggest chart hit from this album, a song called Peg. One of my favorite guitar solos of all time. Jay Graydon plays the lead guitar solo on this one. Rick Morata's drum part on this is one that I see played wrong by a lot of drummers, but I mean, not that they don't play it well and that it's not in time, it's just that's not the way he played it on the recording, and including myself included. I never actually learned the part that he plays on the recording. I never really transcribed it exactly because, I can't hear it that well in the mix, as well in the mix as all the other stuff, but nonetheless, I should probably get that drum part right at some point. But I see a whole host of other players get it wrong too, so it's not that big of a deal. But in either case, nothing really much to say here. Dun 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 dun. Like I said, great guitar solo by Jay Graydon. Steve Kahn on guitar, Don Grolnick on clavinet, Paul Griffin on electric piano, Chuck Rainey on bass, Rick Morata on drums, Victor Feldman, Gary Coleman on percussion, Tom Scott on Lyricon, Michael McDonald, of the Doobie Brothers sings backup vocals on this along with Paul Griffin, and Donald Fagen on vocals. Peg. Looking good for the picture, I guess. Peg's a great song. This one, side 2, track 2, Home at Last. Honestly, probably my favorite song on the album. I talk about Bernard, the aforementioned Bernard Purdy, a perfect example of his Purdy shuffle, of his halftime shuffle, his signature beat being known as the Purdy shuffle, just feeling good here, you know, John Bonham and Jeff Porcaro would take it and meld it into their own within their own bands, but in my opinion, one of Bernard Purdie's best drumming performances on any recording. Babylon Sisters is up there as well on the Gaucho album, but Home at Last. Love the little break there, you know, with the chorus. So who do we got on here? We got obviously Bernard Purdie on drums, Chuck Rainey on bass, Larry Carlton on guitar, Walter Becker playing the guitar solo on this one. A great guitar solo by Walter Becker. Walter Becker was a very talented guy. He was mainly the bass player for Steely Dan, but when the band stopped touring, he would start to play more and more lead guitar work. Rest in peace. Victor Feldman on piano and vibes. Victor Feldman, he's been mentioned here a couple times. He played with Miles Davis for a time. He played on the Seven Steps to Heaven album by him, and Donald Fagen on synthesizers and vocals, and backup vocals. Timothy B. Schmidt again appearing on this one, and then Donald Fagen. Home at Last, awesome. I Got the News, side 2, track 3. It's good. Wonderful funky feel to it. Who we got on here? Chuck Rainey on bass, Ed Green on drums, Dean Parks on guitar, Victor Feldman appearing again on piano, vibes, and percussion, Walter Becker and Larry Carlton playing guitar solos, Donald Fagen playing synthesizers and vocals, lead vocals, and then backup vocals. We got Michael McDonald again, Clyde King, Vanetta Field, Shirley Matthews, and Rebecca Lewis. Honestly, I Got the News is probably my least favorite song on the album. It is not a weak song whatsoever. It's very awesome, but I don't know. I just liked all the other ones better. But I Got the News, great kind of funky feel in perfectly Steely Dan fashion, as one would say. And then last but not least, side 2, track 4 on here, we got Josie, another female name here. Josie's great. Wonderful feel by Jim Keltner on drums. Played with the ex-Beatles. Chuck Rainey again on bass. Victor Feldman on electric piano. Larry Carlton and Dean Parks on guitars. Walter Becker again making another appearance on for a guitar solo. Donald Fagen, of course, on synthesizers and vocals. Jim Keltner on percussion, and then Donald Fagen and Timothy B. Schmidt again on backup vocals. But yeah, Josie is great. Prime of the Neighborhood. Josie Comes Home. Yeah, that intro. Great way to finish up the album. So yeah, Josie's great. Overall, I would give Steely Dan's 1977 album Aja 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's great. My favorite Steely Dan album. A lot of other people's favorite Steely Dan album, but this is a must-have. If you want an introduction to Steely Dan, I'd probably start with either this one or Can't Buy a Thrill, which is their debut from 1972, which had the original band members on it. Again, great album. I love this one. This is one that frequents my turntable a lot. I want to thank you guys for watching my first album review. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll probably do more of these in the future. Until then, take care. We'll see you later, guys.